The why behind real estate came from my situation between work-life balance. I got into private security going on, I guess it's about 7 years ago.
You know, you have your portfolio that's growing in Detroit. It seems like you're diving into that market and trying to grow that there. You have your short-term rental in PA.
It's, I think, the hardest thing to get over for people. That one of two things. One is just being able to put yourself out there. The other thing that I think is a huge hurdle for a lot of people with long distance versus kind of, in your own backyard. Joining a group with somebody with a massive following that was like from day one with bigger pockets, that has 1,000 doors and they own hotels and they own half of Wisconsin. The average home in some of these zip codes 10, 15 years ago was like sub $30,000.
Mike, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. This has been a long time coming, man. Ryan and I have known you for, it's funny, I think it's been 3 to 4 years now at this point.
Yeah, just
you joined our inner circle about a year, 9 months ago or so. And it's just been an awesome journey to watch you grow your real estate portfolio. And I'm finally glad we're having you on the podcast, man. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And I say us, but it's just me today, just me and Mike. So Mike, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have, in the past year, I'll give just people a little bit of a breakdown. You have 7 units. Yep. When you joined our community, you had, I think, 1 or 2. So you've just seen this last year rise of you going from, 1 to 7, your real estate portfolio is growing, but just tell us about yourself, what you do for work. And, I think people would love to know something that they could repeat. And what you've done, what you've proven is that anyone can do this, man. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So my quick and dirty background, I work in private security. I live in New Jersey. I did, like you said, I had 1 unit in kind of the suburbs of Detroit, and it's called Warren, Michigan, before I jumped into the community here. And my second, you guys were kind of played a part in that. That was a short-term rental. I dove in and started hammering all the online networking I could, and I've seen the growth of that just through joining a mastermind or any kind of networking group, if you will. And I can attest to the value of kind of putting yourself out there and finding whatever boots on the ground team or people who have boots on the ground to kind of extrapolate the speed of how fast you can build a portfolio.
Yeah, man. And you're a great testament to that. But before we dive into like that and how you did all this, I really want to talk about the why behind it. Not necessarily like your why. Maybe we'll get to that. But like, why real estate in the first place? Like, what got you super excited about this? You have a good job. You're smart. You're an investor. You're investing in the stock market and stuff, just like normal 401k stuff. But why real estate? Why did you pivot, if you will, or just like go all in on this? Because anybody that's grown to 7 units in a year or a year and a half, you're committed. And we talk every single week and I'm watching you grow, but I'm curious about the why behind real estate. What got you so excited about it?
The why behind real estate came from my situation between work-life balance. I got into private security going on, I guess it's about 7 years ago, and great gig, but potentially horrible hours. I think anybody can relate one way or the other, whether it's somebody with a basic 9 to 5, they might be doing 2 jobs, they might have some kids, and trying to balance that all, especially in a career field that really takes you away from home a lot. You miss a lot of holidays, you're away from home more than the average job. I was investing, I have a healthy IRA. I still dove into stocks. I have a little tiny bit of crypto, but none of those things I viewed as an outlet that could actually, not that I want to leave my job anytime soon, but sooner than 50, 60 retirement age. And when I want to do that, I want to have something that could sustain and maybe get me there a little bit younger. None of those other avenues offered that. Real estate has, beyond the tax benefits, but it's the cash flow and being able to buy an asset that grows the same as my other investments, but also provides some income. That was super appealing. And, once you buy one, you kind of get hooked, even though it's only a few $100 a month or whatever. That's not necessarily going to move the needle. But when you see how you can find other avenues to grow that number and potentially exit the workforce sooner than later, it's addicting, for lack of a better word.
100%, man. I'm curious about what made you decide to take the actual action to do this as opposed to just thinking about it. Because I talk to people all the time. I want to get involved in real estate. I want to do this. And it kind of just years go by and they never do it. And you live in New Jersey for people that don't know. And your first deal outside of your primary residence was in Michigan. So you did this long distance thing. And then actually, I think, and we'll get into your portfolio is Michigan and PA, and you're in New Jersey, right? So talk to us about what made you decide to take the action and push you over the ledge, not only for your first deal, but your first deal to be, few hundred to 1,000 miles away.
I think number one, living in New Jersey, it's a lot of people in coastal markets feel the same way. Anybody who's relatively high income or feels like they're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, they say, okay, I want to put my money somewhere beyond the basic 401k route. And if you live somewhere like Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, California, like I see my appreciation in my own property. Like the appreciation is great here, but crazy high taxes, crazy high entry points, compared to the Midwest and elsewhere, you're not going to find an asset that actually cash flows. And again, looking at those other avenues, they weren't as appealing to me. So I dove into the podcasts, I dove into the books, I read a lot of David Green, a lot of Bigger Pockets, and I just kind of fell in love with the concept of the ability to find cash flow. So being from Jersey, I saw it wasn't here, and I looked at where I could go and just started networking.
Love it, man. I mean, that's the way that most people do it. And for you to be able to actually take the leap, I just want to commend you for that. I'm curious about what your portfolio looks like today for, people that just, we're 5-7 minutes into the episode. Tell us where you're at today, and then we'll kind of maybe work backwards to how you got to the position that you're at.
Yeah. So today, like you said, I got 7 units. That's between 5 roofs. So, I bought the one single family before I started kind of getting involved with you guys in the group. I have 1 short-term rental. And then just this year, I purchased 2 more properties. 4 roofs, a duplex and a triplex also in Southeast Michigan. One is in Detroit proper. One is in Pontiac.
Got it. Okay. And so, you have your portfolio that's growing in Detroit. It seems like you're diving into that market and trying to grow that there. You have your short-term rental in PA. I just want anyone that's listening to realize that you can do this and it doesn't have to be in your backyard. However, I would recommend, even if you're in an expensive market, if you can start in your backyard, do it, but you don't have to. And Mike's living proof of that. So talk to us about what it's like to build a team in a market that you don't have boots on the ground yourself or eyes on every single day. Like what are the strategies that you put into place for you to be able to do that?
I think the hardest thing to get over for people, that one of 2 things. One is just being able to put yourself out there, because there's no choice. You have to make the phone calls. You have to jump on forums. You have to find people online, whether it's growing a little bit of an Instagram platform or some kind of thing to establish a touch of credibility, or at least be willing to be the beginner and be willing to kind of fall on your face and look like a dummy that doesn't know everything. The other thing that I think is a huge hurdle for a lot of people with long distance versus kind of, in your own backyard, is if you have the acumen to do the work yourself, DIY these projects, especially like a live-in flip or something like that, it's really hard to break out of that DIY slow as you go kind of pattern. And scale. The luxury of someone like myself living where I do and not being, super, super handy and knowing I would never take those projects on myself anyway was, okay, I have to look elsewhere. I have to build these teams and I have to figure out how to vet them so that I can have enough trust that they'll do the job. Luxury being, I know I couldn't do some of it myself anyway. So it's not that hard to have more confidence in some of these guys, but it's worked out so far.
Yeah, dude, I think, well, this is interesting because Ryan and I started buying in our portfolio. We started in our backyard, but then once we were like 30-40 minutes away, I realized it was a similar transition to being a few hours away, because once I hired a property manager, I wasn't the one going to the properties. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, if I can do the work, maybe I will do the work. But like, then you have to think less. You need to think more like a business owner and less like, hey, I need to get this specific task done. Because a business owner would delegate to the right people and have you be working on $100, $200, $400, $500 an hour tasks as opposed to $20 an hour tasks. Now, you just went long distance right away. So you kind of said, well, I'm forcing myself into this scenario. I'm not the one that's going to be doing the work because I'm not going to be driving out here every weekend. So I think that's huge, man. I want to ask you about what led you to us and the community. And because you had this one property, you've been following us for a little bit on social and listening to our podcast. And then once we connected like this on like, not face to face necessarily, but like on Zoom, it was just like, it seems like just such a great fit. So what led you to the community, and what do you think gave you the confidence that you're like, hey, I really need to be like affiliated with these guys and I want to dive in?
Yeah, I've said this to a number of people. It's a lot of times it's overwhelming when you try doing the networking thing, and there's a ton of groups. There's gurus and stuff like that you can jump in anywhere and you might have success. But I personally, and I know a lot of people feel this way, felt very daunted by joining a group with somebody with a massive following that was like from day one with bigger pockets, that has 1,000 doors and they own hotels and they own half of Wisconsin. Like, I like the fact that you guys were X amount of steps ahead of me. I mean, we're also relatively geographically in the same space, so you're coming from a similar mindset. You guys are relatively close in age to me, and not to knock your success because you're not Grant Cardone yet, but
It's all right, man. We can
that
take
was
it.
the appealing thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could at least relate enough that it was like, I'd like to learn from somebody that feels real, and I can visibly see is where I want to head, even if it's not, ruling the world yet. But that was a huge selling point, and it made it that much easier to kind of jump in. And so far, it's been a fantastic decision.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So, I mean, for us, we've made this our mission to be, just from the beginning, to be authentically ourselves, and always reach out a lending hand to people that are a couple steps behind, but also because the people that are a few steps ahead of us have always done that for us. So I caution people that are on the internet. If you hear people talking shit, or you hear people that are saying negative things, they're typically behind where you're at. And I was thinking about this today. Like, there's so much hate and people saying negative things, but like the people that are a couple steps ahead, that are the real ones, they want to pull you up to place that they're at. And I've just seen this rise for you, dude. Like, it's so cool to watch. You go from joining the community, having one unit, now you have 7. I want to kind of get into like the nitty gritty of like building this out there. But before we do, I'm curious if, as you came into the community and started to meet people and started to get the feel of like the roadmap, what were some of the biggest takeaways or like aha moments of like, hey, these guys can really help me, and not just them, but other members of the community can really help me, not just in theory, but in tactfulness, to help me accelerate my journey. And here we are, a year later with you growing. And I know you're texting me all, like, we're always talking about the next move for you. So I can just tell the mindset is to continue to grow. So just talk to me about some of the takeaways or aha moments you had.
I mean, absolutely. I think every deal, everything you do, you're going to take away a few new things every single time. Even if you have a very cookie cutter, I buy single family homes with 3 beds, 1 bath. It doesn't matter. You could buy 15 of those, and every one you're going to learn something new. The value I've got from the group is, whether it be you and Ryan alone, or the guys that I've met. I have little subgroups now. We had group chats going with other guys and stuff, different avenues. It's learning from each other's mistakes is probably the number one thing, and successes. But it's like meeting lenders, meeting people who've used different loan products I didn't even know existed. And you could read all the books, you could read all the things, and then there's a lot of stuff that gets popularized, like subject to deals and there's the new hot thing. But seeing the guys that are doing it regularly, and how they pivot, like a very basic one is, I was always like, okay, I'm going to put 25% down on all these properties, since they're compared to where I live, very, very affordable. And then I started looking at like cash on cash metrics, and it's like, oh, well, technically, if I had just put 20% down on that to make sure, I would be, yes, technically cash flowing maybe $50 a month less on 3 or 4 of those units, but I would have had X more to scale that much higher. And when you look at, like I heard you talk about recently, kind of the velocity of your money, I'd rather have more appreciating properties with a couple extra bucks, less dollars coming in cash flow. It would have been the same amount out of pocket. That's just a basic tenet that, like, some people who might lean more conservative would go, put more down, it's safer. Yes, but you can still buy right. You can still vet your partners right. You can still learn from everybody's mistakes and do things better because of the knowledge you gain from all the access to this information that I wouldn't have without the group.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that first of all, the information is abundant. I want people to realize that you can chat GPT anything. You can get all the information. There's YouTube University, there's podcasts, there's books, there's all this stuff is out there. But to have somebody like walk you through what they think you should do based on being a couple of steps ahead and talking about the nuance that you wouldn't understand unless you'd gone through it, to me has the biggest value that I've seen in masterminds, and not just our community, but Ryan and I are in other masterminds where it's like, hey, what are you doing in this specific scenario? And then you meet and you talk through it. And then when another problem comes up, you talk through that problem. And just to have people in your corner, really, to me, has like been the biggest benefit that I've seen in mentorships. So yeah, man, I appreciate you saying that. And I think that I'm excited for what's next for you. But let's talk about a specific deal that you've done since you've been in the community. I know that you've leaned heavily into the Detroit metro area. You started to build a team out there. We've talked about some of the members that you've put together, and we'll talk further about it. But give me some numbers on a deal that you found, how you found it, how you financed it, where you are in the process with, cash flow and equity and all that. I'd just love to hear, and I'll kind of ask some questions along the way if we leave anything out.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, I like the fact, I feel like Detroit and that whole metro area is such, you couldn't get a better example of a market that, especially if you're not there, you need to vet your boots on the ground and you need to build trust, because it's such, I mean, look, most people, you say Detroit, what does everybody think? War zone. You saw, everybody saw the city burn into the ground 15 years ago, and all the vacant homes and the lots and everything. And don't get me wrong, they still exist, but with the right people and the right teams, you can see and navigate where are the good pockets, where are the up and coming pockets, what neighborhoods just outside the city are very, very investor heavy for a reason. And you can navigate that. To dive into the deal that I was going to talk about, this year, it was a duplex I bought in the southeast side of the city. This is the only property I own in Detroit proper. And like I said, I have a phenomenal boots on the ground team. I always shout out my agent, Jess Caldwell. She kills it. I'm completely, what's it called? I'm blessed to have her, because when I've talked to other realtors in other markets, I almost want to just take screenshots of her emails and be like, can you do this? Because if not, next. Like it's too detailed. The breakdowns, the appreciation rates, everything is phenomenal. That said,
by the way, before you dive in, she's awesome. And she's actually, I don't know, this podcast will probably be aired after this, but she's coming in. I just talked to her today, actually. She's coming into our community to give like a breakdown of what she's seeing happening in Detroit, just because you've seen success. Other members of our community are thinking about investing long distance. We only have one member who's actually in that area, and they're not even in Detroit. They're just in Michigan. So people are noticing what you're doing. You've taken this lead, and people want to follow suit. And the best part about this dude is that there's enough deals to go around. And I think that's the abundance that people need to get into. It's like, don't gatekeep the information, man. Put it out there, and we'll get into your social journey too. But go ahead, talk about this deal. I want to get into that. But Jess is awesome.
Yeah, she's a rock star. And that's great. I'm glad she's coming on.
Yeah.
I guess the thing too, like what comes with her team, everybody I've worked with and met through them out there, like I said, there's specific pockets. There's only about 4 zip codes I would invest in, and this is one of them. So, like I said, southeast side of the city, I found a duplex, to kind of quick and dirty the numbers. It was listed at like 115. We ended up closing at 107.5 for a duplex. So people who are in coastal markets, they're going to hear those numbers and laugh. That said, it did need work. We've put probably 20 into it already. I mean, it still needs a new roof. I'm getting on that. But interior fixes, there was some structural stuff to the back decks because it was a 2-story deck. The garage was kind of falling apart. The internal fixes to get everything rent ready for the city inspection, all that. But the thing is, 107,000, the ARV on this thing, once it's completely up to code, it's going to be in the 160, 180 range. If you really, really went top grade, you could get up to 200 in that area, because that whole area is kind of surrounded by neighborhoods on the southeastern part, just outside the city. Those are really nice neighborhoods. So it's very up and coming. And again, that area, it's street by street. So you rely on your teams to find the areas that are nice and the streets that are nice. But all in, we got a house for $107,000 that it's going to rent each unit for just, in theory, a perfect day would be about $1,100 a unit. Realistically, I got one rented so far. That one is at $900, but that's because it was a long-standing tenant. We didn't want to jump his rent too much. And then we just signed a lease for $1,025 on the upstairs unit. They haven't moved in yet. But still, it's nearly a 2% property, and that's technically under market. The Section 8 rates, which a little subjective, but Section 8 rates are even better. You could pull $1,200 plus for a 2-bed, 1-bath in that neighborhood, and again, that makes it over a 2% property.
So, dude, this is big because there are people out there that are thinking, I can't invest in. Not only can I not invest in real estate, but I can't invest in this high interest rate market. The 1% rule doesn't even work anymore, and you're telling me. Correct me if I'm wrong. This property was on the market, right?
Yeah.
Found it on the market. Okay. So sitting there on the MLS for anybody to go after, $100,000 roughly purchase price, 107, and you're renting it for what?
Right now,
just under $2,000 a month total?
19 and change.
19 and change. So we're very close to that 2% rule. And you were able to take this down, not necessarily going like, hey, this crazy creative financing strategy or this seller finance where you had to talk to a seller for 2 years. By the way, all great strategies and all work, but I want people to hear this and realize, yes, in 2025, yes, with interest rates being above 6, I think you're probably close to 7 on this one, right? Or maybe above 7.
What was this one? 687 was the rate I got.
687, and it's a 2% rule, and it's going to cash flow a few $100s a month. And you're also force appreciating this property to get it to be worth close to that $200,000 number. So, I mean, dude, this is the stuff that you don't see unless you dive into a market and you get the help that you need to walk through deal specifics. Like, if you think about Detroit, same thing with Philadelphia, bro. If you think about Philadelphia from the outside looking in, I hear people that don't live in Philadelphia and they go, oh my God, why would you, it's a war zone over there. I hear all the news. I'm like, dude, there are unbelievable neighborhoods in Philadelphia. I love it in Philadelphia. And great. I hope I hope that you think of it this way because there's more opportunity for people that really understand it. Same thing with Detroit. Now, we know people that are investing in Detroit that were buying properties for $5,000. I probably wouldn't invest in that neighborhood, right? But like, even if you can get 70, 80, 100, $120,000 properties compared to where you live in New Jersey, it's unbelievable, right? So that to me, man, is huge. I think I'm curious about your future goals. Do you feel like you've established this network and this ability to scale within, the area that you're in Detroit and the surrounding areas there? What's your next play? Because you and I were chatting on the phone actually about Georgia the other day because you found a deal down there. So you are somebody that I admire because you're open to new markets, you're open to new strategies, and you're not afraid to make mistakes. And I think that is the key to success right now. So tell me about where you feel like your portfolio goes from here.
So I'm at a place now where I'm constantly open to Detroit Metro. If a deal comes across, that's great. Then we'll pursue it. In the immediate moment, I am kind of like stabilizing. I'm paying down a little bit of debt. I used a HELOC for the last 2 purchases, so we want to pay a little bit of that down. I'm not looking to buy tomorrow, but maybe in the next few months we'll start kind of looking to acquire again. I am building a network or attempting to build a network in Georgia as well, mainly because of this group and the connections I've met people that own a number of properties there. And it's the only reason I'm looking there is just a little bit of diversity. It seems that most of the properties they're maybe 20, 30 years old, newer, and just a little more landlord friendly, little less tax heavy than Michigan is. That said, some of the reason for those taxes is the crazy appreciation because, I mean, we've talked in our group and I've talked to other people. The average home in some of these zip codes 10, 15 years ago was like sub $30,000. Now, like I said, this one could be nearing 200K in 10 years. So yeah, there's some higher taxes and that hurts cash flow, I guess, but where are you going to get that kind of appreciation? But that's I'm kind of like one way or the other. I'm going to try to establish a team in Georgia, see if something comes from that. But otherwise I have some rock stars in Michigan that will just stay the course there.
Yeah, yeah, dude. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep doing your thing, but also like be open to other markets. And your ability to manage these people kind of separates you from people that are just like all over the place with it. I want to talk about some of the challenges that you've had because there is this. It's interesting when you start investing in real estate. You're starting a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you do it the right way, you're starting a business. Now, there are people that think, okay, I'm going to go make an offer on a couple properties. I'm going to get them under contract. I'm going to cash flow. I'm going to leave my job in a year. By the way, power to you, dude. If you can do that, it's possible. If people have done it before, it's possible. But I think what people forget is that there are setbacks. There are times where, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work? And that's why we value the community so much, to have the weekly accountability to push people forward. Hey, you said you wanted to do this. This is the thing that is going to help you create generational wealth for your family. But you know as best as anyone, Mike, this doesn't come without problems. So Talk to us. I didn't really necessarily prep you for this, but I'm curious if you had like a challenge that you overcame, maybe that the group was able to help with, or just that you were able to navigate yourself, whether that's permitting or construction, just to give people an idea of some of the things that do come up in real estate. And then there's the hurdle that you inevitably get past.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, well, not necessarily because of my exposure to the group, but I almost regret not joining something like this prior, because it would have saved me some headaches. When it comes to a few things that stand out is navigating HOAs. Yes. My short-term rental, it was the biggest rehab I had taken on at that time. We did a gut reno of the bathroom, new ceilings, recessed lighting, backsplash in the kitchen, furnished the whole place. And also exterior, buying hot tubs, which was the biggest hurdle because the HOA and hot tubs and zoning and all that stuff. It was shocking to me how easy it was to work with the contractors, the realtors, the towns even. But when you get the HOAs involved, it's a nightmare. And if I had talked to more people that had done it prior, I would have known a more realistic timeline, if nothing else, just to temper expectations. At the end, it all worked out and we're good. And that property is doing very well right now. So that's great. But in the moment, you're frustrated as hell trying to figure out like what this is taking months. I thought it was going to take a week, like things like that. Same thing in Detroit. Like my agent had told me, get the sewer line protection, get the water line protection, stuff like that. I get those ads in my house in New Jersey all the time it's like $7 a month, $10 a month, just do it. I never saw the value in it and I didn't do it there either. And 3 months in, we had a cracked sewer line. It ended up being like a $5,000 fix, which is honestly not terrible as far as sewer lines go. But had I just ate the $750 a month, I would have paid $30 out of pocket in that time frame, not $5,000. Yeah. Stuff like that, just stuff that you don't experience until you experience it. And that's how you learn.
Dude, that's like that's like getting an MBA. Like that's the price of admission for some of these things. If you get into real estate expecting contact to not be made and you to not have to not screw up, the goal for us here is to help people turn what would be a $40,000 mistake into $1,000 mistake or not making the mistake at all, because there are very key things that you can avoid. And yeah, man, I mean, a $5,000 sewer line fix, if you're digging up the ground, like that's cheap, that's relatively cheap.
Yeah,
like relatively
it could be 15, 20 very easily. Yeah.
Easily. Yeah. So, this is great. I want to talk about one of the other things that we mention in our community and that I've talked to you personally about, and you're like the poster child for this, this process here. I'm going to get into it. So Ryan and I started our social media platform, our podcast, when we had 2 units. We started talking about our journey, sharing our story, the ups, downs, the real stuff, the things that were going on in building our portfolio. And one of the things that we tell everyone in our community and physically show them how to do is how to create a personal brand around your real estate investing journey, if you will. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone starts a podcast. You don't need to do all this, but if you just talk about your story and you share it with other people and you are not afraid to post, you don't care what people think, you just say, hey, this is what's happening. To us, has been the biggest improvement of people coming and saying, hey guys, I'm a real estate investor too. I've always wanted to get into this. And deals start to come your way, partnerships start to come your way. So talk about your journey, starting a social media platform around your real estate investing journey and the benefits that you've seen from that. And I'll caveat this by saying you started posting on social, you started an Instagram account because we were like pushing you to do this. Yeah. You did it. And then literally 3 to 4 weeks later, you got booked on Bigger Pockets Rookie, and now you're known as like the out-of-state investing guy who invests in Detroit. So I spoiled it a little bit there, but I want to get your take on how you feel like this has pushed you in the direction of putting your message into the universe.
Yeah. It's. I think of all the steps I've taken, of all the things with, as far as, like I said, putting yourself out there, it's by far the biggest hurdle. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of, talking to a camera or even just taking a picture and sharing what some people would say is intimate details. You're putting out your finances essentially to the world, at least a piece of them, and sharing that side of your life that otherwise would be private. It's daunting. It's scary. A lot of people, I get why they don't want to do it, because I didn't want to do it, but you guys spoke to the magic of it, and you're like, hey, it's free marketing. Building this digital resume, it will benefit you. Just give it a shot. Watch. And I did. And I'm slacking a little the last week or two, but I've seen just from that, I met like 30, I counted them the other day. It was like over 30 investors from New Jersey specifically. Never met. I've been to a few meetups over the years, never met any of these people before. That's the only reason I know them, is from either the Bigger Pockets podcast or just Instagram in general. And all of them are in the same mental boat as me, where it's, hey, we live in this really high cost, high tax state. We want to get into real estate, but I don't want to be bleeding $500 a month just to own another asset that, God forbid, something happens and then it becomes more of an expense. I like this out of state thing. How do I do it? And I'm at a point now where, like, there's so many of them that I'm like, I'm very, very strongly considering setting up some kind of meetup in a mutual location just to kind of meet these people face to face. And like you said, I just had a girl I was emailing this morning that she's looking to get into the Pocono, PA short-term rental market. And she's bouncing facts and figures off me to see what's going there. And then there's potential JV possibilities. There's a lot of, you don't realize there's partners out there that you never would have had if you don't put yourself out there. And it's really not that hard.
This is where the magic happens, man. This is truly, and the only reason that you and I are having this conversation, that you joined the inner circle, is because of social media, because Ryan and I put our message out there, and then you found us and you were listening to us. You're like, hey, I like these guys. Like, do you have the next layer of this rather than just a 60-second reel or an hour long podcast? And the next layer is, yeah, man, we're going to become boys and we're going to work on these things together to help you grow. So it's just impressive to see what you've done, and like every piece of advice. By the way, we can be wrong. Like, obviously Ryan and I can be wrong, and the people in our community can be wrong, but you've taken each piece of advice and put your own spin on it and done it in your own way and just seen success from it. And I just think that's what this game's about, is just more abundance, more people getting into the game and sharing the knowledge. So I commend you for that, man. I have a couple other questions that I want to get into. You have a short-term rental, and then you have the rest of your long-term rentals. I'm curious about your take on somebody getting into the game and having their first deal be a long-term rental versus a short-term rental. I've had people ask me the question. I have my own take on it, but I'm very curious what you think in terms of the differences in managing and the differences in acquiring, and what you'd recommend to maybe somebody who has no units or one or, 2 deals. Should they go the short-term rental route? Should they go the long-term rental route? And it's nuanced. It probably depends on each person's scenario, but curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, my gut says long-term. It's easier, it's lower maintenance, it's less headaches, but it's also lower cash flow. It's also a slower grind. You need more doors to really move the needle, but it's sustainable. I mean, even just from like a bookkeeping perspective, it's you don't have to deal with constant tenant turnover, sometimes multiple times a week. You don't have to deal with replenishing Keurig pods and toilet paper and landscaping and hot tub maintenance. Like, granted, you have the right management team and a short-term rental. They will basically take a good chunk of that off your plate, but it's still another thing you have to just keep eyes on. Outside of crazy high income earners that are looking for that major tax break on a short-term rental, I still say, from a ground level, entry level standpoint, long-term rental is the way to go for at least deal one. Just do one to get your feet wet. The most powerful piece of that is just proof of concept to yourself that you can do it and you can actually buy these things. And it's like, wow, I own another house now, or maybe your first house. You might rent and you want to buy out of state because you don't own here. But proving to yourself you can just close on a property and make it profitable even if it's $150 a month in cash flow, that in itself is enough of a mind switch that then you can pivot if you're comfortable with a little bit more oversight, a little bit more management for the return of more cash flow or what have you.
Yeah, man. So this leads me to one of my last questions for you. And I'm curious, over the past year, since we've got to know each other more, and just your journey has expanded, what do you think's changed about your why about real estate investing? Like your overall, like, this is why I get up every day and do the work. This is why I get up every day and try to, better myself and buy more properties and try to control my financial future. I didn't even ask you about your why in general, but maybe if you could answer that question about what you're doing this all for. Mm-hmm. And then has that shifted over the past year? Has your thought process about around doing it, either the strategy or just the why behind it, has that changed?
I think the why is the same, and the why still comes from, like I said, I used to work for a private security firm it was very like you could work 60, 80 hours in a week. And if you were off on Saturday, an event pops up, guess who's working Saturday? Like the time at home was very lacking. I was not a father yet when I worked there. Now I have a little girl. I want to be able to be home. Currently my schedule is significantly better, so I can't complain, but I am still away a lot. That's still the why. I want some kind of vehicle that can provide a lifestyle, whether it be 5-10 years down the road, that allows me to be able to walk away from that type of a schedule. And since that's the career path I've taken, it can pay well, but it won't necessarily ever change enough. I'm never going to have a standard 9 to 5 hours. I'm never going to have the holidays off guaranteed. So I want to build something that preferably sooner than later, I can step away from that and be able to be home with the family and just have that work-life balance. It's not about fire necessarily and just being retired, and everybody thinks it's like this sitting on a beach drinking pina coladas kind of thing. I think that's farther from reality than most people realize. But just to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point, since I've been scaling, is awesome. So the why stays the same. Where my how differs is I went from long-term to short-term with the express goal of more cash flow, because if we have more cash flow, we can exit that lifestyle sooner. That said, scaling in a short-term capacity is a little bit tougher, in my opinion. You're not going to be doing so much of like a burr strategy or something like that, where you can rinse and repeat and, like you've said recently, kind of see the velocity of your money, at least not in my view. I'd rather be in a set market where you can plant your flag and really establish yourself so that I can, help other people, partner with other people, use private money to get multiple projects at a time going to therefore scale quicker, rather than dump all my current capital into one thing just for the sake of an extra $500-$600 a month in cash flow. So I guess that's where my mindset changed. It's the same goal, different route to that goal.
Yeah, you have such a great long-term outlook on this, dude, because what happens to people when they think about real estate investing is they think about the escape from their current reality that they don't like. They think about, this has got to get me out of my job. I hate what I'm doing right now. And what we're saying as a community, and like what we've been preaching with the Wealth Juice in general, is that find a job or find active income that you really enjoy. That, if it's out of a scale out of 1 to 10, that it's an 7.5 or an 8 or above, that you are good at, you can create new skill sets, you can get better at it, whether it's you're working on your own business or you have a W-2 job, and just get really good at it and then keep taking the money that you're making from there and then use the velocity of money by putting it into real estate to help grow it on the outside so that you have optionality. But we're talking about a 5 to 10 year time frame here. We're not talking about 1 year. And I think people lose sight of that, because Ryan and I are selling a property that we bought in 2021. We bought it for $135,000. We're selling it for hopefully $350,000. But it's taken that 4 years of $500 or $600 a month in cash flow that, by the way, we didn't touch. We're not living off that.
Right. Yeah.
It took those 4 years to be able to, okay, if you think about the day-to-day of 4 years, it seems like a long time, but now we're about to exit and quadruple our money. And you have to think about it in the longer-term lens, and you're doing all the right things in your portfolio so that, Mike in 2020 or 2040, when you're, approaching 50 years old, you're like, oh my God, look at all the things that I've done and look at the flexibility that I have with my life. So, I mean, I got to say, man, it's cool to watch. So I appreciate you sharing. And I'm just glad to be on this journey with you because it's really cool to watch you grow. One of the other questions I have here is I'm curious about your recommendation for people who are just starting out. They have no properties. Would you recommend mentorship coaching? Can be with us, can be with anybody really, whoever you resonate with whoever you resonate with. Would you recommend that for somebody just starting out? And why?
1,000%. It's the confidence boost alone just from being able to go, okay, what market do I invest in? And even if you do your own homework, because that's what I did. Like I bounced around. I was looking at turnkey providers in all the big markets you hear about, like Columbus, Ohio, and there's Alabama. There's all over the place. So like, how do you pick one? And to have somebody that's done something similar, even if they're not in a market, they can at least go like, look, let's look at that goal and reverse engineer what you're actually after. And if right now, especially if you haven't done a deal yet, it's just to get your feet wet and build that confidence and get that proof of concept. It's invaluable to have a group of people that can look at the deal. It's like, okay, you pick a market, here's a deal. Does this work? How do I run the numbers? Everybody can look at a calculator and listen to a few podcasts, but they won't account for certain things. My biggest one that I always harp on, and I beat this dead horse, is in high appreciation areas, if the taxes haven't been reassessed, you have to know how to run those numbers right. And if I had known that prior, my first deal would probably be I might have offered a little less. I might have done certain things or saved a few bucks, not wasting it on certain things, because it doesn't cash flow as much as I thought it would. And having more senior eyes on those deals from day one would probably save you some of those headaches. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, man. I as an example for me, my property that I bought in Tampa, Florida, I bought it in 2023 and I bought it for double what it previously sold for 10 years earlier. So my thought process, and I knew this was going to happen, but sometimes like the city, they're a little bit late. So it took a year and a half for it to actually kick in, where my taxes went from like $5,000 a year to like $8,000 a year, right? And if you do the math, that's like $300 or $400 a month, like $400 a month. Yep. That shifted my cash flow. And I think without knowing that off the bat, there's so many things to think about. Without knowing that, my property cash flowed $1,000 a month. Well, now it's $600 a month, right? And that changes things. And then my insurance went up a little bit, right? But I agree with you, man. Having people in your corner that really know really want your best interest, and to be able to look at things from a bird's eye view about, okay, this is what you told me your goals were, Mike. How can we help you shape this so that you can get there? And by the way, there will be setbacks. There will be things that piss you off. There will be things that you run into, and then we just navigate from there. So yeah, man, I think it's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious if you have any like final words for someone who's thinking about investing, who's been in the analysis paralysis phase, who's like, I want to do this. But maybe they're hesitant to start. They don't know what to do. Any words of advice from you personally or from the group or wherever you can think of that you would want to give to that person? Maybe previous you, if you will.
Yeah, previous me, I would say once you've established a base of knowledge, and that doesn't need to be 75 books and 1,000 hours of podcasts and every meetup under the sun in your area and stuff like that. I would say set limits on those things. Give yourself, I don't know, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to, there's a number of books everyone recommends you read. There's like 3 to 5 that everyone seems to keep spitting out the same ones. Read those books. Jump on the Bigger Pockets podcast. Listen to the Wealth Juice podcast. Listen to the standard stuff, but set a limit on that. And you have to kind of set a bar for yourself to take action. As long as you have a little bit of a safety net, there's only so many things that can go wrong. A lot of people that are new or haven't done it yet, they're always worried about, what if the worst case scenario, what if it doesn't rent? And what if there's a major CapEx item and I don't have $50,000 for this one property set aside? It's like, well, the likelihood of the roof caving in and the septic exploding and the house burning down all in the same year is, look, I don't know what you did in a past life to deserve that, but maybe you deserve it at that point. Like, I don't know what to tell you there. It's not that bad. And you can get over those hurdles easier than you think because they're not constant. Taking action is going to alleviate a lot of the anxiety. And once you have that proof of concept, it just becomes a lot clearer, whichever way you want to go with it.
Yeah, man. I want to leave people with this, and you're a living proof of this. People, I believe, need to stop making decisions out of current circumstance and start making decisions out of the vision of their future. That's where I think people go wrong, is that they're making decisions. Well, I can't afford this, or I'm scared, or I'm nervous. But would your future self, who's already had the success, and looking back, would they tell you to make decisions based on where you're at now, or make decisions out of the vision of your future? And you have to put yourself in the present tense. And that's what Ryan and I have practiced. I have this vision board over here. I write down goals every year, and I'm thinking, would 2027 Corey, the version that I've become, would he make decisions out of the fear of 2025 Corey? Because I'm scared about doing shit all the time. I just do it anyway. So, yep. And dude, you're doing that. Like you've already established yourself as like, you're an investor. You have 7 units. You've grown significantly over the past year. Now you're able to help others. To me, that's like that's the best feeling that I can get, is have this conversation with someone like you. We were strangers 3 years ago, and now I would consider you a friend and somebody that I'm just excited about growing in the next phase of your journey. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. So yeah, man. I don't know if you have anything else. I just want to leave you with that. And, I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing I'd say is it kind of circling back to like that whole putting yourself out there, whether it be social media or going just to meet people and trying to establish some kind of credibility on your own. Realize there's other things you get from it. And there's kind of a fulfillment just from being able to help people that are a step or two behind you. And selfishly, that will also benefit you. Like if you help X amount of people kind of connect with a team and get their first deal and make sure it works and everything like that, help them. That's a potential partner in the future that could help you take down another deal. And it's kind of like pay it forward, because it'll come back to you tenfold if you really care about it. And I've seen that on a kind of a micro scale thus far, but it definitely keeps you kind of invested, no pun intended, in the game. And it's a cool thing.
Yeah. It really is. Mike, this has been awesome, man. Even just having conversations with you now about how you tell your story versus how you were speaking about it like 6 months ago, it's really impressive. Like you've learned how to like concisely share the information, and like that comes with like knowing your shit and knowing your market and starting to like really piece this together. So just from, I always like to give people constructive criticism if I can. I just think, and this isn't even really that. It's just that like you're now a storyteller, and you're now like able to like really concisely share it. And I think maybe you have a future in podcasting, dude. I don't know, but it's pretty cool to chat with you. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, man. And thanks for sharing your story with everyone, and keep doing your thing. It's fun to watch.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks again for having me.